They say memory is a funny thing, that it doesn't come to you in neat, linear reels, but rather in flashes, a hand brushing your cheek, the flicker of a dress in sunlight, a voice 2 rooms away saying your name like it still mattered. For me, it starts with a photograph, a black and white shot from the late 80s, filmed grain like soft static. My wife, Miriam, is frozen mid-laugh, sitting on the hood of a Ford Thunderbird. She's young in the picture, but not too young, old enough to know better, you might say later. Her smile is wide. A cigarette dangles from her left hand. Her right rests gently on the knee of a man who isn't me. That part, the man, that came later. Back then, I thought the photo was just art, something she'd hung in our hallway out of nostalgia. She said it was from back in college, the time before me, before responsibility, before everything became spreadsheets and real estate and wondering what the dog was chewing on. I believed her. I had no reason not to. Back then, our house was full of these frozen memories. Snapshots in aging frames. Old film photos she developed herself. She was a photographer, you see, or at least, she liked to think she was. Used to say capturing a moment was the only way to make it last. I didn't argue. I was busy making sure we could pay the mortgage on the moments that didn't. She curated our home like a museum of our life, pictures of us hiking, birthdays, beach trips where our smiles looked natural. If you looked closely, you'd notice they started getting more staged over time. But most people don't look closely. Then came the old film reels. She found them in a box in the attic, claimed they were from her art school days. Home movie stuff. Nostalgic, blurry. Said she wanted to convert them to digital, so she set up a little project in our spare room. Bought one of those film scanners off eBay, the kind that smells like warm plastic and regret. She spent hours in there, headphones on, digitizing the past. I thought it was cute, maybe even therapeutic. I figured she needed something creative to sink her teeth into, something that wasn't me. Marriage gets quiet after 15 years. I didn't mind the silence. I wore it like a jacket that still kind of fit. But I'd catch her sometimes, staring at the screen with that strange, soft expression. Not longing, no, this was deeper. Like she wasn't just watching, she was remembering, reliving. And I didn't ask questions. That was my crime. I should have asked who filmed them. Who was behind the camera? Who was laughing off-screen in that low, familiar tone? Instead, I watched her hang more photos, artsy ones, out of context. Black and white prints, she said, fit the mood of the room. It didn't click until the third or fourth photo. A different man in each, but one face kept recurring. Subtle. Always in the background. Blurry in some, sharp in others. Always beside her. Always close. She said it was just part of the project. I said nothing. Because sometimes, silence is the last defense a man has left. Miriam always said she hated clutter. But our house, ironically, had a dedicated memory room. That's what she called it. A small space between the laundry room and the guest bath, where she kept her camera gear, a light table, some old notebooks, and drawers full of negatives. It looked like an artist's bunker and smelled faintly like developer fluid and lavender. She used to joke that it was where she went to remember who she was. I didn't go in there much. It felt like I was trespassing in a shrine I didn't fully understand. A museum of someone I thought I knew. But one rainy Thursday, the kind of rain that taps the windows like it's trying to ask for something, I found myself standing in the doorway, watching her work. She didn't hear me. Her headphones were on, and she was threading a reel through a dusty projector, muttering to herself like she was conducting a seance. The reel clicked into motion. The screen lit up, just a wall she used for projection, and the flickering image showed a backyard barbecue. Grainy figures laughing in slow motion. One of them was Miriam, twirling in a sundress I'd never seen. And there, just out of focus, that man again. Tall. Familiar posture. I cleared my throat. She jumped, startled, pulled her headphones off. Didn't hear you, she said, flashing a smile that didn't quite land. Who's that? I asked, nodding toward the screen. She followed my gaze. That? Oh, just an old friend from college. We all used to hang out back then. He was harmless. Harmless, I repeated. My voice wasn't angry. It wasn't anything, really. Just a shape in the air. She laughed, nervously, too fast. Come on, don't go full detective on me now. It's just art. You know I'm archiving the past. And that was the word she kept using. Archiving. Not revisiting. Not reliving. Archiving. As if organizing history made it innocent. I nodded and stepped back into the hallway. But something settled in my chest like a coin dropped into a well. Small, quiet, but deep. That night, She fell asleep on the couch, or pretended to. I sat alone in the kitchen, thumbing through a stack of the photos she'd left out. They weren't labeled. They weren't dated. Just prints. There she was again. Younger. Happier. With him. And then I noticed it, in two of the photos, the same old watch on his wrist. Same scar across his right knuckle. Same chipped tooth when he smiled. I knew that smile, because it used to sit across from me at poker night every Thursday. My friend. Cal. I didn't flinch. I didn't breathe. I just picked up the photo, held it under the light, and studied the edges. The truth doesn't always slap you. Sometimes it just waits. Quiet. Patient. Like a photo in a dusty drawer, biding its time until you're finally ready to see it. I always thought betrayal would come like thunder. Loud. Explosive. Maybe some yelling, a few thrown glasses, a cinematic monologue about trust and how it bleeds. But no, for me, it arrived on a flash drive, tucked inside an old film canister. Clever, really. Camouflaged by nostalgia. I found it the next morning. I wasn't looking for anything, just cleaning out the memory room while Miriam was at the market. The canister rolled off the shelf when I nudged a box. It hit the floor with a hollow clack, and curiosity did the rest. Plugged it into my laptop. Opened the only folder inside. Photos. Video files. Timestamped. I knew the location, my old lake house. The one I lent Cal for, his cousin's wedding retreat, a few summers back. I remember because he borrowed my cooler and brought it back with a cracked lid. Said it got dropped on the dock. Guess that wasn't the only thing that cracked that weekend. The video opened with her laugh. That unmistakable, lopsided laugh of Miriam's when she was tipsy and leaning too close to someone she shouldn't. There she was, wrapped in a blanket, sitting on Cal's lap. The camera wobbled, like someone handed it off mid-recording. Then it steadied, and they kissed. Slow. Like it wasn't the first time. Like it wouldn't be the last. He whispered something to her. I couldn't hear it, but she smiled, not the kind she gave me when I came home with groceries. No, this was the kind of smile she used to save for surprise getaways and midnight whispers. And then she said it. You know he still thinks we just reconnected at the wedding? Poor guy. She laughed again. Laughed. The file ended. Just like that. No credits. No dramatic fade to black. Just the quiet whir of my laptop fan and the sound of my own heart slowing to a crawl. It wasn't new. It wasn't a one-time thing. It wasn't even recent. It was curated. A betrayal aged like wine, bottled in smiles and silence, poured into a glass I never even knew I was holding. She came home an hour later, humming to herself. Bags of produce in her arms, still warm from the sun. I stood in the hallway, arms crossed, and asked without raising my voice. How long? She paused, blinking like she missed the first half of a sentence. What? You and Cal. The groceries hit the floor. Apples rolled across the tile like marbles escaping a broken jar. Logan, it's not. Don't insult me. Not now. There was a flicker of guilt. Then it hardened into something uglier. You always knew we had history. I knew you were friends. I didn't know you were recording anniversaries behind my back. Silence. And then she said it. The phrase that has no business being spoken out loud, but always finds its way into moments like these. It didn't mean anything. I smiled. I actually smiled. Then you won't mind what I do next. She tilted her head. What's that supposed to mean? I didn't answer. I just walked back into the memory room, picked up the stack of photos, the real ones, the damning ones. Her face. His arm. The lies wrapped in silver gelatin. And I started planning. Not for a confrontation. Not for a fight. No, for an exhibition. The thing about revenge, real revenge, is that it doesn't need to raise its voice. You don't get even by shouting into someone's face. You get even by building something so calm, so composed, so calculated, it makes them question whether they ever knew you at all. And so, I built an art gallery. In our home. It started with the hallway. I took down the family photos. The graduation pictures. The wedding shots. All the curated memories she thought painted us in warm, golden light. I boxed them up, every last one, and slid them into the attic without a word. Then I opened the drawer of the old buffet we never used and pulled out the stack I'd found in the memory room. The real images. The candid betrayals. The unspoken truths. Photo by photo, frame by frame, I began hanging them. Not just prints. I enlarged them. Matte finish. 11 by 14. Clean black frames. I arranged them with precision, evenly spaced, each one aligned at eye level like an exhibit at the Met. The hallway became a timeline of treachery. In one, she's laughing on a boat with Cal, their legs entwined. In another, they're sitting on a blanket, wine glasses in hand, his fingers brushing the hem of her dress. I even printed a still from the video. That exact moment she whispered, "Poor guy." That one I framed twice. Once for the hallway, once for our bedroom. Because art, you see, deserves to be revisited. Next, I moved to the living room. Above the fireplace, I replaced the watercolor landscape she loved, the one we picked up in Santa Fe on our 10-year anniversary, with a stark, grayscale photo of Cal's hand resting on the small of her back. Her head is turned, laughing at something off-frame. Intimate. Incriminating. By the time I was done, the house was unrecognizable. It wasn't a home anymore. It was a truth museum. And I was the curator. I didn't mention it to her. Not once. I waited for her to come home from her weekly book club, the one I now suspected had about as much literature involved as a Vegas craps table. She walked in, humming again. Always humming. Always a little too cheerful after an evening of discussing character arcs. She made it 3 steps in before she froze. Her eyes landed on the first frame in the hallway. A photo of her and Cal at a cabin, holding hands under a fleece blanket, their heads too close, their grins too wide. She blinked once. Twice. "Logan," she said slowly, like trying to get a wild animal not to run. "What is this?" I stepped out of the kitchen, holding a glass of water like nothing was different. "What's what?" She gestured toward the hallway, fingers twitching. These pictures." "Oh," I said. Sipped my water. "That's the new exhibit." Her brow furrowed. "Exhibit?" I nodded. "Yeah, I'm calling it your real face." Silence. Thick. Heavy. Like the house itself had stopped breathing. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. She turned back to the wall, looked at the next photo, the one with her hand on Cal's thigh in the front seat of his car, dated 6 months before our anniversary trip to Napa. "You're joking," she said finally. This is some sick joke." "No joke," I said. "It's a tribute. To honesty. To documentation. You're out of your mind." "Possibly," I replied. "But at least I'm not out of touch with reality." She turned back to me, face tight with something between anger and fear. "You can't just hang these in our house." "Our house?" I raised an eyebrow. Interesting word choice. "You mean the house where you and my friend rehearsed a seat like it was community theater?" Her jaw clenched. I walked past her, slow and steady, letting her stew in the weight of her own expressions, now immortalized in glass and mapboard. "See, you used to say photographs freeze time," I continued. "That they tell the truth when memory blurs." She opened her mouth, then shut it again. "You lied to my face for years," I said calmly. "So I figured the least I could do is remind you, daily, what truth actually looks like. You're being cruel. I'm being accurate." Her eyes moved frantically now, taking in each frame, each timestamp, like a defendant realizing the prosecution's got more evidence than they let on. "You planned this," she whispered. I shrugged. "I curated it." "There's a difference." She backed into the wall, almost knocking one frame askew. She reached out to fix it, some automatic reflex, I guess, even as her world was collapsing. "You think this makes you strong?" She spat. "Turning our house into some kind of monument to bitterness?" "No," I said. "It doesn't make me strong." Then I stepped closer, lowered my voice. "It just makes you visible." She flinched. Not physically, but somewhere behind the eyes. Somewhere that used to believe in her own innocence. I left her standing there. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared at the wall, her legacy now fully documented, frame by frame. By the end of the week, I'd invited guests. Quietly. Selectively. A few friends. Some neighbors. A couple of colleagues from her job, art lovers, conveniently. Called it a private opening. Just drinks and emotional realism through photography. The invitation read, "A woman seen clearly, perhaps for the first time." Next time, we move closer to the final act. The funny thing about showcasing someone's worst moments is this. They start to wonder how many people have seen them. They start to squint at strangers. Flinch at laughter. Rethink every smile that doesn't reach the eyes. By the second day of the installation, Miriam had stopped touching the light switches. It was subtle at first, just hesitation. A pause before entering the hallway, eyes darting between frames like they might lunge at her. But by the end of the week, she was turning sideways to avoid them entirely. Like she thought the images could see her, judge her. Which, to be fair, they could. And they did. Because the pictures didn't just live on the walls anymore. I'd scanned them. Enlarged them. Printed booklets. 20 copies. Hardcover. Glossy pages. Gold foil titles. The Archive of Us. Subtitled beneath in smaller print. Curated by the man you thought would stay quiet. I left one on the coffee table. Another in the guest bedroom. One went to her office, hand-delivered by courier. I didn't say a word. I didn't write a note. Just included a little card inside each that read, Chapter 1 begins on page 6. Page 6, of course, was the still from the lake house video. The one where she says, "Poor guy." That moment had become iconic in my mind. A phrase I couldn't shake. The way she said it, like pitying someone for wearing last season's shoes. Not the man she married. Just, poor guy. The ripple effect started almost immediately. Miriam came home early Thursday, phone in hand, color drained from her face like someone had vacuumed the warmth out of her skin. "They're talking," she said. I didn't look up from the stove. Who? My office. My supervisor. My God, even the interns. I had 3 meetings canceled and one person looked at me like I was made of plague. "That's unfortunate," I said, flipping a piece of salmon. "You sent them the photos, didn't you?" "I sent them art," I corrected. "What they choose to see is up to them. Don't play dumb, Logan. This is vindictive." I finally looked at her. "No, Miriam. This is documentation. You taught me that. Remember? The camera doesn't lie. It simply reveals." She leaned on the counter, both hands gripping the edge like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "You're ruining my life." I raised an eyebrow. "I thought I wasn't your life anymore. I thought I was boring. Predictable." Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. She looked smaller now. Not just physically, like the confidence she wore like perfume had started to fade. "Was it worth it?" I asked. Quiet. Deadpan. She didn't answer. So I kept going. "Was it worth the secrecy? The smirks? The little digs you thought I wouldn't hear?" Her jaw tightened. "Was it worth trading 20 years of loyalty for 3 summers of sweaty lake house romance with my best friend?" Still nothing. So I pushed the plate of salmon toward her. "Eat. You'll need the strength." "For what?" I wiped my hands with a towel. "The opening." Her eyes snapped up. "What opening?" "The second exhibit." She laughed, but it sounded like a cough trying to hide itself. "You're joking." "Am I?" "You're insane." "No. Just thorough." And then I left her there. The sound of the fork clinking against ceramic followed me down the hall like a guilty echo. That Saturday, I hosted it. The viewing room. One night only. I rented out a small local gallery downtown, the kind that smells like white paint and ambition. Invited a curated list of mutual acquaintances, ex-friends, neighbors, a few of her coworkers who still had questions. I dressed in black. Served wine. Played piano instrumentals softly through Bluetooth speakers. The prints were displayed on easels. Under each one, a caption. Not petty captions. Just quotes. Actual quotes. Text she sent him. Voicemails I transcribed. Her own words, printed in tasteful serif font. "She still thinks we're just coworkers. Bless him. I get chills when you touch me. It's electric. He's never made me feel anything close. I used to pity him. Now I just avoid him." Guest whispered. Some stared longer than others. One woman covered her mouth and muttered, "Jesus Christ," under her breath. A former colleague of Cal's took photos on his phone. I didn't stop him. An older man in the corner, someone from her photography club, I think, said, "This is devastating and brilliant." "Truth often is," I replied. She arrived halfway through, wearing a long coat and sunglasses like the villain in an indie film who shows up too late to stop the explosion. She didn't make a scene. She just stood near the door, frozen, watching people walk past the pieces of her lies, framed and elevated under gallery lights. The betrayal wasn't private anymore. It had texture now, tone, exhibit numbers. I caught her eye, nodded once. She turned and walked out. Didn't say a word. When I got home later that night, the house was quiet. A single suitcase sat near the door, half-zipped. The closet was half empty. Her side of the bathroom counter cleared. No note, no apology, just silence and vanishing perfume. I didn't smile, didn't feel triumphant. I just walked into the hallway, stood in front of the first frame. Her laugh, his hand, that perfect moment of betrayal frozen forever. I tilted it half an inch to the left. Perfect. A week passed after the gallery showing. I expected some fallout. What I got was silence. Miriam moved out. She didn't leave a note, just a few receipts, a half-empty bottle of perfume, and the smell of shame clinging to the guest sheets. Word got around. As it always does. People talked in hushed tones. I noticed longer stares at the grocery store. A neighbor I'd never spoken to gave me a knowing nod as I watered the lawn. A local artist messaged me on Instagram asking if I'd consider submitting your real face to a traveling exhibit. I politely declined. That story was over. The museum had closed. Then, 2 days later, Miriam's mother called. I'm not here to defend her, she said. But she's unraveling. I let her speak. Apparently, Miriam had checked herself into a wellness retreat. Not rehab. Not therapy. Just one of those overpriced lodges with incense and slogans about rediscovering your sacred energy. She'd lost her job. Cal's wife had seen the photos. Divorce papers were filed within 48 hours. Poetic. Miriam had nobody left. And now she wanted to talk. She showed up at my door on a Sunday afternoon, dressed in gray, eyes tired, voice fragile. I came to apologize, she said. I let her speak. Every word. I didn't interrupt. Didn't offer her water. When she finished, I nodded once. Apology accepted, I said. Relief swept across her face until I added, but forgiveness doesn't mean access. She blinked. What? I'm not your sanctuary. Not your audience. Not your next redemption arc. I didn't expect. Yes, I cut in. You did. You always expect. I opened the door wide. Goodbye, Miriam. She left. And this time, she didn't come back. After the storm passed, I expected peace. What I got was space. Empty rooms. Quiet evenings. No more shared blankets or petty arguments about thermostat settings. It wasn't lonely. It was clarity. I repainted the hallway. Not to erase her, no. That would give her too much credit. I painted it because I deserved something new. No more art. No more installations. Just blank walls. Then Cal emailed me. Subject line. I owe you more than an apology. I didn't open it. Some wounds don't get bandaged. They get archived. Her name was Elise. I met her at a bookstore. She was reading Crime and Punishment, which should have been a red flag, but somehow wasn't. She asked about my watch. I told her it was vintage, a gift to myself the day my divorce finalized. She laughed. A celebration? No, I said. A reminder. We had coffee the next day. Dinner that weekend. No games. No masks. Just two people sitting across a table, talking like grown-ups. I told her everything. She didn't flinch. I like that you didn't let it rot you, she said. I considered it, I replied. But I'm not giving her that satisfaction. 3 months later, I got a voicemail from Miriam. She sounded tired. Not fragile, just faded. Hey, I know you probably won't respond. I just wanted to say, thank you. For not screaming. For being colder than fire. You didn't humiliate me. You exposed me. There was a pause. Then, you were right. About the photos. That was my real face. I deleted the message. I didn't need closure. I already had it. 6 months after the exhibit, I received a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photo. Not one of the old ones. A new one. It was Miriam, standing alone at the edge of a pier. A blurry sunset behind her. Hair tied back. No makeup. A small notebook in her hands. On the back of the photo, in neat handwriting, it read, I took this myself. Thought you'd like it. One last addition to your gallery, this time, with consent. I didn't hang it. I didn't burn it either. I put it in the same drawer where I keep my old passport, my father's cufflinks, and a letter I never sent to Cal. Then I closed it, locked it, and went outside to walk my dog.